Alright, I'm going to tell you about one of the worst nights of my life. It actually started off as a really great day. My girlfriend and I had been on the motorcycle all day. We had a great time, saw some friends. We were on our way home, actually back to her house. We were about 2 miles away. We were coming through a green light. Guy runs a red light, jumps in front of me. I lay on the brakes a little too hard, lose control of the bike. My first moment of realization was waking up on a stretcher in an ambulance in the Morton Hospital parking lot. I was shaking from the shock and the cold because they cut my clothes off. I was confused. I didn't remember what had happened or what happened afterwards, but for some reason I knew where the accident took place. It was only about 4 blocks from Morton Hospital. And I was comforted by the fact that I knew that my girlfriend had been taken before me. I wasn't sure how I knew this, but I was certain of that. And as they were wheeling me out, I decided to just check on that, so I asked the ambulance driver, I said, my girlfriend's already here, right? They're already taking care of her. And he just looked at me and said, no. He said she was in a lot worse shape. She was bleeding from her head. They took her to Rhode Island Hospital. Now, mind you, it was 4 blocks from Morton Hospital, and Rhode Island Hospital is 20 miles away. And that was all I knew for hours. And it certainly wasn't from lack of trying. I bugged every doctor, nurse, anyone who came in the room. I was like, hey, listen, this is my girlfriend's name, this is where she's at, I need to find out about her. But everyone was just worried about taking care of me and doing what they needed to do, and they wouldn't listen. At one point they sent in a social worker and took her information as well as my family's information. I found out later that she never called anybody. So not only did I not get word, I also had no one there in the emergency room with me. Even at one point I remember I was getting x-rays done and I was begging the x-ray technician and she said, listen, there's nothing you can do for her right now, you need to take care of yourself. And she was so right, but it fell on deaf ears because that was the only thing I could think about in that moment. I'm not a religious man, but if I was, I would have been bargaining. You know, I would have been offering my help for hers. I remember at one point, after the x-rays and the CAT scans and the MRIs were done, they were waiting for the results to come back, so I was just laying there strapped to the board, and they figured they'll come in and patch up my wounds. I wasn't wearing gloves that day, so there were chunks of my hand that got taken off, and there was huge gouges in my arms, and there was just rocks and pebbles in it. And this young nurse comes in, she's just taking these pebbles out one by one, and then putting alcohol in the wound. And she noticed, she was like, oh my God, you're not even reacting. And I didn't think about it, and it was because all I could think about was Rhode Island Hospital. My mind wasn't in that emergency room or even in that state. And this went on for hours. I had to lay there, just listening to the machines beep, staring at the ceiling, just wondering, fearing the worst. After about 2 or 3 hours, a nurse and a doctor came in. The nurse took the neck brace off without warning. She kind of picked me up, and just as she did that, another nurse poked her head in the room, and she said, are you Drew? And she had a phone in her hand. She said, here, we have a call for you from Rhode Island Hospital. I said, great, so finally someone's calling. I'm going to find out what's going on. And I put the phone in my ear, but it wasn't actually someone from Rhode Island Hospital, it was Karen. And I said, oh my God, are you right? She said, yes, you know, I'm in a lot of pain, I have bad concussion, but they think I'm going to be all right. They're discharging me now. And it was just an emotional outpouring, all those fears and all those worries that I had kind of coming out. The doctor talked to me, he said, you know, you have really bad concussion, you know, a lot of, you have to see an orthopedist, but you know, you're fine for tonight, so he discharged me. I waited in the emergency waiting room for about an hour in the Johnny, patched up wounds, waiting as Karen and her mother came to pick me up. And I still remember the way she looked when I came out of there and I saw her. And I was just so happy to see her. That night we went home and we just kind of laid in bed, awkwardly cuddling because we were both in just so much pain. And those hours waiting in the emergency room, you know, fearing the worst and having to think about that, well, that made that one of the worst nights of my life. Being able to end that night laying there holding her made it one of the best.